to build a culture in your game. Dungeon Master. Do you want to make your culture interesting? Some dwarven advice on how to create realistic and interesting cultures. Dwarven wisdom and rage. In this video, we will explore what makes a culture and what makes it interesting. Then we will build a culture in a fantasy setting. A culture has a foundation and three key components. The foundation is the environment where it is located. The environment impacts all aspects of a culture, like its first component, subsistence, basically how they survive. This includes the natural resources that they have, such as food and shelter, and also the basic social relationships they have created. A good example is from the Game of Thrones. Here we have an image of the Stark children. If you have watched or read the books, you know that the Starks are from the North. And the North has some harsh environment. The weather is cold, so they tend to dress in heavy furs most of the time. And also, their relationships tend to be about survival, and their skills or games also entail learning how to survive. They don't really are sitting around eating and talking too much. They tend to have very practical skills. And the mode of subsistence affects the second component of a culture, and this is their social structure. The social structure consists of the norms and values of a culture. Basically, what is acceptable social behaviors, how you dress, how you speak in some ways, how you relate to others. Of course, if it shows the acceptable social behaviors, it also will show what is not acceptable social behaviors. It also includes domestic relationships, meaning how you relate to your father or mother, how you view them. The kinship, how you relate to the extended family. And also the laws. What laws are in place to keep your society and culture intact and not go into chaos? The social structure then affects the third component. The third component is the worldview. The worldview is how a culture and its members view the world around them. It is not necessarily how the world actually is. A good example, it is the belief that the earth was flat. Back in medieval times, we tend to think that everybody thought that. That is not true per se, but some people did thought so. It was a common myth among sailors. That is, they sailed far enough from the land to the point where they could no longer see the land, that they would fall off the edge. Well, was that true? No, of course not. Even we dwarves that we're not that much fond of water. Well, actually, I am, but that's another story. We know that the earth is not flat and you're not going to fall off the edge. But that is a good example of a worldview. They believed that, they thought it was truth, but it's not. So in most cases, your worldview is just how you see the world around it. It is not how it actually is. So remember, it's just how a culture and its members interpret the world around them. Another good example is the orcs. Do you think that orcs consider themselves to be evil? No, they do not. But they value raiding, plundering, pillaging. That is why other cultures might view them as evil, but they do not necessarily see themselves as so. It doesn't mean they're not, but it just means they see themselves in a different light. Now, this is one of the reasons why there could be strife in your world. We can also talk about dwarves and elves. Are elves evil? Are dwarves evil? No, but they have different values. And because of their different values, they do not agree with each other too well. Plus, we have history, and some of it is good, and some of it is bad. But keep this in mind. The worldview of each culture could be a central point of why there's strife and conflict in your game or your world. Remember, what makes Dungeons and Dragons interesting, it is the conflict and the strife. Because if we all get along, well, that is kind of boring, don't you think? The worldview can also include the self-identity of that culture, meaning how they see themselves, their languages, and the belief on the supernatural. The supernatural includes the idea of, for example, supernatural identities, such as gods or a god, or a pantheon of gods. No? Do this culture believe in gods? Or instead of believing in gods, they might believe in their ancestral spirits, like a founding ancestor, or that your dead relatives will protect you and will be there for you. So you might worship them instead of worshiping gods. Or you could actually worship both. There's also the possible concept of animism. Animism is a concept where you believe that the living and non-living objects are imbued with spirit. Many Native American cultures believe this, that basically everything had a spirit. And in a way, it was a good belief because they respected then everything around them. Another supernatural belief is animatism. Animatism is the belief that there's a supernatural power all around us. It is impersonal and it is unseen. A good example is the concept of the Force in Star Wars. Actually, George Lucas studied anthropology, and there he learned about animatism. This concept that some cultures have, where there is this supernatural power that is all around us, and it is unseen. Now, By impersonal, we mean that it doesn't have an identity, like a personality. Also, is neither good nor evil, but it could be used for good or it could be used for evil. Now, let us look at the dwarven culture of the mountain home of Minas Geraes. Well, the environment is in a snow mountain peak. Well, it is cold and there's little sunlight. No, they have a lot of cloud cover, and then the dwarves mostly live inside the mountain. Now, the food resources they have found is inside the mountain. In some caverns, there's actually these mushrooms that grow there, which are edible. And outside the mountain, there's plenty of mountain goats. So these are two of the food sources they have found. Inside the mountain, and one of the reasons why they moved here was because they found granite, a type of stone, and they also found silver, a type of metal. These two resources they could use to build an economy and trade with other groups. Now relating to subsistence. Well, because the environment is cold, they dress in heavy layers and with furs. The furs mostly coming from the mountain goats. Also, because they get little sunlight, their skin tends to be light. If you get little sunlight, your skin will tend to be lighter. If you get a lot of sunlight, your skin will turn darker. So these dwarves tend to have a light skin color. Also, they're well known for their mushroom goat pie. Again, they have combined the mushrooms and the goat meat to make this fabulous mushroom goat pie. And they're also known for their drink, which is a fermented goat milk. Now, their social structure. Well, it also involves around mining. So the social ranks or social classes within this dwarven hall develop around mining. And so we have three social classes. The high social class tends to be you're a granite miner or your family works granite. The medium is the blacksmith. It is medium because, well, everybody needs the blacksmith. The granite miners need the blacksmith. And the silver miners also need the blacksmith. And the low is the silver miners. They're low because the silver they find in this area is not of high quality. And they actually fetch more gold for working granite, the granite miners, than the silver miners. So they tend to be at the lowest ranking of the social statuses. Now, the hold is ruled by a mining guild, which is divided into groups. The granite miners and the silver miners. They together make the laws and the decisions for this hold. Also, the laws they have created all evolve around mining and stealing. Now, with social structure and mining, the laws have been set by the mining guild. And they have created laws that when it pertains to stealing and murder, it could mean death. In many cultures, whatever their cultures views as valuable or a resource that has a lot of value, they could impose the hardest punishments. For example, in Texas, if you steal a horse, there's still some pretty harsh laws that could apply to you. Now, let's look at the worldview, and more specifically, the supernatural beliefs of these dwarves. Well, instead of believing on dwarven gods, they actually believe more strongly on ancestral worship. They worship the founding of the clan and the ancestors. So for them, instead of worshiping a pantheon of dwarven gods, it's more important to worship their ancestors, to ask help from their ancestors than some gods. Now, they could actually worship both. It can be a combination of. It is up to you, however you want to create your culture. And here we have the doors of Minas Gerax. As you can see, the dwarves of Minas Gerax, they dress in heavy layer clothing. They also are fairly light skinned because they get little sunlight. And their equipment is made for mining. Mining for stone and mining for silver. Do you agree or disagree? What type of cultures have you created for your game? Share your wisdom in the comment section. But remember, be honorable, be respectful, subscribe, hammer the bell, share.